think everybody in the States was kind of shocked 2 years ago when they got this, which is a catalog. And it's from someone you wouldn't expect. Anybody who's over 40 knows what it is because they were brought up marketing and they know catalogs. In the old days, like you had a big actual file, every card was a customer and you had 3 metrics on it. Recency, days since purchased, frequency, number of times purchased, and RNF predict M, which is the total spend. And you could do all sorts of targeting there. And I would say even today with AI, the best predictive models of future lifetime value or profitability are still like 80 or 90% RFM.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Klaviyo Geeks, and today is another special episode because we have yet another guest joining us, and I'm very excited. I think Omar is a lot more excited than I am, so I'm going to let him do the intro. Omar,
all right.
Who are we with today?
Yeah, for those that don't know him yet, I'll let him do the introduction himself, but I'm just going to go a little bit back on history here. I think some 8 years ago when I first got introduced to Drew. And Drew Sanocki is our guest today. I'm really honored to have him on the podcast because for me, he has been the person to kind of like help me with some mental models on how to do things. So whenever I took a course from, I think 2017, more or less, where I kind of got introduced to Klaviyo, that's actually, I would say, the Klaviyo Geeks or the Klaviyo legend status is almost thanks to Drew, because he got me introduced to Klaviyo and really taught me a lot of the frameworks and things that I'm actually still using today, and I've elaborated on, and some things that I've thought came up with that he's like, oh yeah, but I actually was talking about this 15 years ago already. It's like, okay, the man, the legend. Really happy to have you here, Drew. Thank you for being here, and also welcome. Maybe quick introduction, who you are, what you do, and what you care about.
That's awesome, man. Well, yeah, it's great to be here. My name's Drew Sanocki. I'm currently the CEO and co-founder of PostPilot, which is a direct mail platform for e-commerce. But yeah, I've been in e-commerce for like 25 years, mostly on the brand side, running brands. A lot of those brands were, first I ran my own brand. This was like in 2000, and sold that, and then started buying and like getting profitable other brands. So like I'd work with private equity here in the States to buy a big brand, turn it around, get it profitable, and sell it. That's how I came up with the idea of PostPilot. And I think along the way, I did a course on Conversion Excel thing. And that's probably what you saw, Omar.
Yeah.
But yeah, torch has been passed, man. It's all you now for the next generation. Right. And I would say like the torch was passed to me from a couple of mentors I had. I mean, there's one guy, Jim Novo, was very instrumental. I don't know if you've ever read his stuff, but really like when I started my first brand in 2000, there's no Klaviyo Geeks. There's no CXL. There's no Shopify, nowhere to learn marketing. So I went to the library and I just started reading about how they did catalogs, how the catalog marketers work, how they did targeting and segmentation. And this guy, Jim Novo, wrote a book on it. And so he became my mentor in the early days. But yeah, that's the history.
What was the book?
Drilling down.
Drilling down
using customer data for profits. And it's an intro to RFM, essentially.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Omar, you have to send Drew your jacket, and 6 months of the year he has to wear it. 6 months you wear it, because you
saw the jacket when I met you guys at K-Boss.
Yeah.
He never takes the thing off. That's the problem.
He never takes it off. But also when he takes it off, he puts on another Klaviyo piece of apparel, and he's got something on now. I can't, if you step back, see, you got something else on from Klaviyo.
Yeah, full of Klaviyo everywhere. I think his toilet paper is with Klaviyo as well.
My kids actually think that I work at Klaviyo. I had to kind of like, no. Actually, I got my own agency. I'm using Klaviyo.
Yeah. Do they send you product?
Well, yeah. I probably have the most Klaviyo merch in the world, and I'm now owning it.
You go into, have you been to the Klaviyo HQ in Boston?
Yeah.
Yeah, you go in and they've got like that merch area where the first time I was there, I was meeting AB and he's like, yeah, just take whatever you want. So I came home, I had like tons of Klaviyo shirts.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool. They have a lot of cool stuff. Like in the London office, they have like these coffee cups, which you're not allowed to take.
Yeah.
And when I was there, I was asking my partner manager, "Do you think I can just nick one of these?" And he was like, "No, no, no. They're very serious about it." I was like, "Okay, well, that's a shame." But yeah, cool. All right, Omar, do you want to kick
Yeah.
off with the first level of today's podcast? We're gonna kind of warm up into things, a little foundation, just kind of get ourselves comfortable. So let's kick off with the first question.
Yeah, so Drew, you've been into D2C game actually long enough to see trends come and go. What's one important marketing thing you've seen that kind of like stayed the same over time, but that people are still missing?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been pounding the table on lifetime value like for 20 years, where everybody like acquisition's the bright, shiny object. Everybody's talking about acquiring new customers. And yet there's another side of the equation, which is like, hey, get the customer, get your most valuable customers to stick around, to buy longer, to buy more. And I think I was one of the few voices to focus over there because it's a lot less popular, less sexy. But I still think it's relevant today. It's
It is.
I would say 90% of the content out there is all about Facebook funnels and optimizing meta and this kind of thing. And yet lifetime values really can drive the profitability of a business. When you look at first purchase profitability for many e-commerce brands, it's marginal at best. And where most of the brands make money ultimately, where they generate the cash flow and the profits, is on getting that second or third purchase from a customer. So I think it's just as relevant today as it always has been, probably even more so as CACs increase and acquisition becomes harder, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
100%. I think probably even more so than it has ever been relevant, because back in the day, it was a lot easier to scale on Facebook than it is now. The narrative seems to be now that, at least when I talk with brand operators and D2C founders, they seem to care a little bit more about what happens on the back end on retention and lifetime value. They seem to be a little more aware of these concepts, whereby I feel like back in the day, 2016, 2015, everyone was just kind of focused on acquisition and that's it. So
Revenue.
yeah, it definitely
I think
is more important
have
than
a
ever.
whole generation of marketers now who are sort of lazy because they grew up in like the glory days of Meta, where you could just throw money at the platform and money came out, right? And all of a sudden, really since iOS 14 in 2021, I think it was,
Yeah.
Meta's become a lot harder. All of a sudden now you have to be a marketer. You got to think about your offer and your product and okay, what happens after the purchase, and that's where I think it plays right into Klaviyo, right? Because that's where you want to make sure you got your
Yeah.
flows dialed and you really think about who's your customer and what they're doing after the purchase.
Fully
Yeah.
agree on that. I think there's one thing with Klaviyo can still improve on is also adding profitability in there instead of the big revenue numbers. But yeah, we'll probably get there.
Yeah, they probably.
So
I mean, if they've got access to the Shopify data, they should be able to back into that.
Yeah.
we're obviously now, as we record this, on October 30th, which is pretty much a month without a day to Black Friday. So I was kind of, before the podcast, doing some research, Drew. I was looking and I saw they have this series of 30 days of BFCM. I'm not sure how much of it you write it yourself, but I found it really insightful. I kind of went through every single post and I was like, man, this is gold. And I wanted to ask you, I get this question a lot from my own clients, but what's this sort of core mindset shift that you want D2C founders, operators to adopt before, I guess, heading into November, which is in a couple of days?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the first question for you guys, like Black Friday, is that as big a phenomenon in Europe as it is in the States?
Well, I think it's a sort of flawed because obviously we are in the space, we work in the space. So for us, it most certainly is. I think for consumers, definitely less than it is in the States.
Well, I think here you've had really like 20 years of the brands teaching customers, for better or for worse, to like buy during that period after Thanksgiving, right? That week after Thanksgiving in the States, which is always like the third Thursday in November. And it's I think the first observation that we figured out, I did this analysis with some at my first retailer, like in 2010, was that it's not like new demand that shows up that week after Thanksgiving. It's really reallocated demand from the rest of the quarter. So you've got this phenomenon where more and more the US consumer is like waiting, like they're not where they would have bought something in October, they're waiting until Black Friday. And because it's reallocated demand, that's the first thing you see. The second thing is like because of the media, the business media, like we're hyping up the discounts. All you see on TV are, these crowds going into Walmarts and things. And so it's all about the deal. And so brands sort of have learned that they need to discount to get attention. And you just got this bad phenomenon where it's not, number one, it's not new demand. And number two, the demand you've reallocated to that week after Thanksgiving is now discounted because everybody discounts. So if you were to compare your revenue from 20 years ago during this quarter to now, you've essentially like just dropped the margin for the same amount of revenue, right? So it's a tough environment. Those are all bad things. I would say the good thing is like this is when consumers buy, and you do find that like the customers that buy over Black Friday are typically like a higher lifetime value customer than the customer you acquire over the summer. If you acquire someone and they purchase over Black Friday, they're going to purchase from you more. You have more of an opportunity to get like a full margin purchase in January, February, something like that. So I think the first thing is just for most marketers realize that that's the mindset right now. Your conversion rates are going to go up. You're going to get a lot more traffic to the site, and you've got this limited window that you need to draw attention to your offer. And so the stakes have just really gone through the roof. And I think it's with that context, like you better plan for Black Friday or you're kind of at a loss.
Interesting. You said earlier is like, the sort of the reallocation of demand, and I 100% agree with that. What I've noticed though, and I wonder if you think that's brands' way of hacking this, or if you think it's basically just silly. All of these brands kind of starting Black Friday a lot earlier. So you have October early Black Friday, pre-Black Friday, Black Friday VIP. Do you think that hacks the game a little bit in the sense that you still pull that demand a little bit earlier and kind of just spread out the
Yeah, I
sales
think
throughout the month? Or
it's really like the past 2 or 3 years, you've started to see brands try to get a little bit more sophisticated, and they either try to pull the demand to a less competitive time. There are other dynamics that happen that week after Thanksgiving. And one of the biggest ones is like the ad markets become insane, right? Like at Auto Anything, which was this automotive aftermarket brand I was running, say you were acquiring customers for $100, right? Or something like that. That would at least double or triple for that week because Amazon, AutoZone, and Walmart came into the ad market, they bid up the price, right?
Yeah.
So I think the smarter brands are trying to figure out a way around that. They are pulling demand forward towards, I'm seeing more and more stuff for Black Friday now. It's October,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
They're coming off the discounts, they're leaning like Jones Road Beauty did a big campaign a year ago where they just launched a new product. It was all about this new product or gift with purchase instead of the discount. Did really well. They're leaning into other channels. I think we're sort of a beneficiary of that at PostPilot because I'm seeing more and more brands seeing just direct mail as like a good alternative to playing that ad game with Meta. So yeah, I mean, I think
yeah,
this will only continue.
yeah. We're gonna have. Well, I mean, we have Black Friday in July, isn't it? I think that's a thing. Um,
Yeah, everybody's trying to
Next
see with
question.
the Prime, Amazon's deal.
Amazon is. I wrote about this just a couple of weeks ago. I feel like they were quite clever with when they figure out, oh, July not much is happening, October not much is happening. Let's just come up with Prime and Prime Big Deal Days, which are huge for them. They work quite well to the point that we create Prime sales with our brands to kind of match that sort of free advertising that they run on their own. So yeah, it's quite interesting that you can create your own holidays.
Kind of like go back a little bit on I think some 20 years ago, we used to have these in the Netherlands as well, but physical stores, they would have like these periods of like 3 days or like a week long of crazy sales, and people were lining up for those. Like yeah, but yeah, it's definitely getting harder on the competitive side. I think one of our brands that we worked with, one of their views was like, okay, that they had high AOV product. It's like people are gonna be only spending so much in this month, so we're gonna start early. So we are sure that we are going to be one of them that they're actually thinking about. So starting early in the month to not be in the consideration when they also have to buy 5 other things. So yeah.
Yeah. It's not like the consumer gets any more, resources to spend, right? So they're still spending a limited amount of money on that,
Yeah.
on Black Friday purchases, right?
Yeah, 100%. So obviously direct mail is a big theme for you. PostPilot. And I was kind of wondering, we run very aggressive email and SMS for most of our clients, and for brands that currently do a lot of email, SMS, and all that sort of thing. You have WhatsApp now with Klaviyo in the European markets. I think there's no better person than you to answer this question, but what makes direct mail worth layering in? And I guess if you want to add in there like a bit of a sort of before BFCM twist, but mostly kind of how is direct mail kind of incorporated into all of that?
Yeah, I think everybody in the States was kind of shocked 2 years ago when they got this, which is like a catalog, right? And it's from someone you wouldn't expect. You guys recognize this? Toy catalog?
I've seen. I mean, I've seen that on LinkedIn because you posted about it.
Yeah,
I haven't.
from a company in the United States called Amazon. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're pretty big, right? So they kind of shocked marketing, 2 years ago. It's like Amazon just dropped a holiday catalog. Like, why did they do that? And they're not idiots. I think it's there's a lot of data. Well, you guys certainly in the email world can speak to this. I've read that the average subscriber gets something like 300 emails. It's like a day or over that week. Like, it's very hard to get the inbox or to appear in the inbox. Even if you do, the only people who could see it are subscribers, and you've got this wide swath of previous buyers who are not subscribed, right? So compare that to your mailbox, right? Where maybe on a good day you get 5 pieces of mail, 10 pieces, and even if you think it's junk mail, like the customer or the recipient is still looking at it, when they throw it away, right? So you got to translate that into digital terms. You've got 99% deliverability, right? Because people don't move that much. You can drop mail to anybody, at least in the States, without the opt-in. In Europe, it's a little bit different. You have to have an opt-in. And then, I don't know, 99% open rate. Like, there's no way to study that, but people see it, right? So holidays end up being just a great time to, if you really want to draw attention to your message, which everybody does, to do direct mail, right? For those reasons, follow Amazon's lead. And then you see like the byproduct, if you measure it in PostPilot over time, you will see that the customers who receive direct mail typically spend more. So they have higher AOVs. They spend more often, so the higher purchase frequency over time, and ultimately higher lifetime value than a customer who doesn't touch something physical and tangible. So for all those reasons, I think holiday is just a great time to experiment with it.
As
Amazing. Wow.
It's interesting. Like there's a big, or Amazon's been trying to get foot on the ground here in the Netherlands, and they're going to be investing a lot of money in the next couple of years. Like I've seen some big numbers, but there's another competitor that's actually claiming the market, and they've been doing this catalog thing for less. And they do it every year. Like we have a specific holiday happening around in December. It's almost like Christmas, but then differently. I won't go into it because it's a bit of a controversial holiday here, but they have been dropping this in November to all the houses, and like the way they've also started changing in, like having QR codes and everything scanning, like they've been really taking that, because it's like it cuts through the noise of the online world. You have physical things, and especially if you look at gifting season, if you have kids, for example, the kids will be going through this. They'll be like, I want that, want that. Like
My
this is
kids
like,
they tore this up. They basically circled everything they want. They put it in front of me. And Omar, to your point about like a high AOV item, like we do see like the higher the AOVs, the better. I probably wouldn't experiment with a catalog if you're selling like a $10 item, right? But the higher AOVs, you can really, like, here's for a company we work with that sells pizza ovens. I don't know if it's going to focus, but something like this, the item is probably like $1,500 US. You can really tell the story. I mean, you think about like old school long form sales letters where you can put the story in here, you can put testimonials, you can put multiple photos. It's just a great way to sell a more expensive product and to get it in front of the customer like well in advance of the Black Friday rush.
wow, thanks.
I mean, I was gonna say what you said earlier about you still see it. I think only on that I truly believe in direct mail, because I always believe that marketing is a game of impressions. And I know when I look in my postal box and I see a flyer or whatever from a brand, I may ignore it, but I still acknowledged their existence. I read it. And I remember I saw this shaving brand that they started advertising within the UK, and I saw a flyer from them. I have no clue how they got my address in the first place. And then I remember I saw another ad on the tube, and eventually I saw like a really special promotion that they had on the tube, and I looked them up. I wonder, would I have been looking them up because I saw the ad in the tube if I wouldn't have gone the direct mail in the first place? So it's like, I think it's just people think is like, oh, it's like people are going to throw it out. Yeah, but it's just one impression in a game of impressions that eventually can lead them up to making a purchase. And that's kind of how I guess I look at it.
There's a lot of science behind that. Like there's this, I don't know if you guys have read this book, How Brands Grow by Byron Sharp.
Yeah, by Byron Sharp.
Yeah, very heavy. I mean, I've got it around. There you go. Yeah. But like it's really heady. Like it's not a lightweight throwaway book. He's sort of this Australian business professor, and he's analyzed like across all these categories. I want to look at the number 1 and number 2 brand versus all the rest. I want to compare, Coca-Cola against everybody else and figure out the number 1 brand. First of all, they capture like an outsized portion of the market. It's not just proportional. When they win, you win big. So you want to win. That's the first conclusion. And then the second is the brands that win have more brand salience. So he just says it's like touch points with the customer. You got to be wherever your customer is. If your customer is on Amazon, you want to be on Amazon. If they're in a store, you want to be in the store. You want to be on the end cap. You want your brand everywhere that your customer is. And so I think that's a big reason why direct mail works really well. It's because people get the print collateral. They throw it on the countertop like it's in your house, and then you see a couple ads. Works really well when you sync it up with creative, with the email and with your meta ads. We have a lot of data that shows you get better results when you do that. So I think it speaks to his point.
Yeah, it does 100%. It was probably one of the toughest yet best books I've read
Right.
at the beginning of this year. I had to read it twice, once with just audio listening while reading, because it's hard to capture, to fully grasp some of the concepts he's explaining.
He's a tough
in there.
podcast guest. I've tried to get him as a podcast guest a couple times, and he's like, you got to fill out all these forms with the university, and
Oh shit! Really? I didn't know that.
It's not that.
Yeah, he would be a great guest to have a conversation. I think. Yeah, I have so many questions. Anyway,
let's move on because we have still a couple of questions we want to ask. Drew, I think it was maybe when Klaviyo did their IPO. I'm not sure. I read somewhere you were actually involved really, really early on with the Klaviyo founders, with AB, the co-founders, maybe helping them a little bit in the beginning when it was really small in their own office, small office still. Can you tell us a bit about that connection, how it started and how it was back then?
I mean, we're all from Boston. I didn't know them. I went to college with AB. I didn't know him. But I was running a brand on Newbury Street, like the main shopping street in Boston. Like that's where our office was. I was CMO. It was a streetwear retailer. And they were like 2 doors down. And we were trying to turn this brand around. They had like 5 million names on their email list. I think they were running on some archaic old piece of software, doing email run off a server in the corner of the room. And I'm like, we got to get you guys doing life cycle marketing. They're like, what is that? I'm like, well, first of all, the brand had gone bankrupt, and it went bankrupt because every day they're sending all 5 million people like 30% off, on random stuff. And you'd click through, and the coupon would only work on like 5 SKUs out of, a million, but not a way to run a business. So I was like, okay, we can't do the 30% off every day. We got to go life cycle. New customers got to get one offer. Old customers got to get another offer. We just got to like change it up. No easy way to do it. I had read a lot about Klaviyo. At the time was like a new platform. I don't even know if Shopify was around then, to be honest. But I was like, oh, they're 2 doors down. And it was one in the early days, there's no way to get a hold of them, no phone number. I don't even know if they had customer success. So I'm like, screw it. I get lunch. I'm just going to walk over there. I walked in kind of expecting like a big software company. It's probably 10 people in a room, all coding, AB and Ed, just like coffees, right? And they're so amped up. And I'm like, hey, I run a brand like 2 doors down, and I need help integrating. They helped me. I didn't help them, but I was like, I need you guys to help me get on the platform. And yeah, they were kind. They sat with me, and I don't know who it might have been. Ed. It might have been Ed. Spent a lot of time with me, but it was probably like a solutions architect he had who was able to get our whole. This was $100 million retailer, which was pretty big at the time. In 2010, and got it moved on to Klaviyo, and immediately started printing money, and the life cycle was like the right thing to do. We were leaving so much money on the table by not doing it. And I think it was probably one of their first case studies. So yeah, that was it just started a pretty good friendship. They ultimately invested in PostPilot,
Yeah.
when we decided to take on some investors. I was like, there are two guys I want, it's like Ed and AB. And they were kind enough to put some money in, and it's been a good relationship. We've got a really strong integration now. We're always talking about how to make it better. So it's
That's
been
awesome.
fun.
Well,
Do you know that picture, Drew? It was like with Jeff Bezos when he was in his office with like the Amazon poster behind him. I wish you would have taken a picture of that with the Klaviyo office back in the day. I think
Yeah,
that would have been
yeah.
quite a cool thing to
I
look
was
back onto.
probably like, I should have quit my job at Karmaloop at the time. I should have just been like, screw it, I'm joining Klaviyo.
Yeah.
But I didn't do that. So left money on the
Oh well.
table.
You're here now. PostPilot is a great tool, so it all,
Yeah, it's good.
ended well.
I joke that it's like I think when I saw Klaviyo working, I had built sort of a predecessor to Klaviyo. I took this open source software called PHP List, and I built in RFM and targeting and
no way.
automation, and it was working really well on our store. This is like 2010, the store that I built in Dreamweaver. Like in retrospect, I should have just turned that into Klaviyo. I didn't do it. Klaviyo comes along. I should have started the Klaviyo for SMS because I knew Lifecycle was such a good idea. I didn't do that. Attentive came along, but I finally got Klaviyo for direct mail. So I'm
Yeah,
happy.
That's
I
interesting.
finally
There's
did
like
it. I learned
that's
my lesson.
awesome.
overlap. I also used to have my own ESP called SendMail back in the days, which also was
Yeah, I
run
remember.
on.
Yeah.
It's like,
And
but
like
anyway,
these things worked on like you had to use Dreamweaver, Xcart, or like OS Commerce. They're just like just like a terrible,
yeah.
a
Sorry, Bogdan,
terrible
we're
lineup
old.
of
We're old.
yeah,
I
yeah.
was just gonna say, I feel like a kid right now. I am so not able to relate.
We
But
one more story. Like we're in my business partner was who worked on the first brand with me. I was more into marketing and email. He was more into like the cart. So he was customizing Dreamweaver, and I was like, why don't we just build a shopping cart, man? He's like, oh, the world doesn't need another shopping cart. Like, we were in some forum of drop shippers, and Toby from Shopify's in there, and he's like, we want to build a cart. And we're just chatting with him in the forum. We're like, dude, that's never going to work. Like there's already 5 carts, Dreamweaver, man. Have you heard of Dreamweaver? And obviously, we were wrong yet again. So the lesson from me is like follow what I'm doing up until PostPilot and do the opposite. You make a lot of
all
money.
right, that's it. While we're on the topic of like the past, Omar and I we asked this for every guest, and we kind of keep kind of covering this topic quite a lot. We had an entire episode 2, where we talked about it. But what's a belief that you held for years in D2C e-commerce or in marketing that you've sort of since then flipped on its head and you don't believe in it anymore? Like, if you don't believe in it anymore, like what made this shift happen?
I was probably one of the early I was one of the early adopters of e-commerce, and I thought e-commerce was it. I thought like direct to consumer is the way to go. You cut out the middleman. Everlane was the first one to kind of go on record as like, hey, a native D2C brand can beat everybody because you cut out the middleman. And I've come around on that. I don't know that I mean, it can still happen. I don't know that I'm like as big a believer in that anymore. I think omni-channel's the way to go. I see most of the biggest brands out there have figured out omni-channel. They've figured out, a brick and mortar store or some sort of like retail placement and distribution. Yes, they have D2C, but they've just figured out how to be in more places. I think the economics of D2C have gotten worse over time. It's in many cases not as inexpensive as you think. I'm always working with brands that are surprised just how expensive it is to kind of keep up a store and have like a customer service team and do all the online stuff. So I've come off the native, sort of like D2C is the sure. I think now it's just a sales channel. It's not like a silver bullet, but you need many sales channels.
Interesting. I also find that a lot of some of our most successful clients, they figure out how to do D2C, Amazon. We have some that are trying to tap into retail now. And yeah, I definitely think it's omni-channel is the way to go.
I think
All right.
Warby Parker and
Go.
Bonobo here in the States like really figured this out probably like 5-10 years ago, where they were opening up stores and then they'd see like the economics of a store were far better than the economics of their D2C, right? Like their customer acquisition costs would drop. And yeah, it depends on your store, it depends on where you put the store. But in many cases, they would figure out that you're attracting many more of your whale customers or your best customers if you put the store in the right place. And you're doing it a lot cheaper than you can online. And I suspect that the economics have gotten even worse, for online since then.
Yeah, 100%. We work with I work with quite a few beverage D2C brands, and I was surprised to see how little they do on the D2C and how amazing they do in retail. And kind of makes sense, right? Because beverage brands do quite well there, and that was their entire focus. And they were like sub 100K on D2C and making millions on
Yeah,
retail.
expensive to ship.
So I think
We see
yeah,
it
100%,
all
yeah.
the time. Like customer wants to sign up for PostPilot. We're like, who is, these guys do 50K through their Shopify store. You're too small.
Yeah.
Oh, we do 100 million through Costco. I'm like, all right.
That was my mistake as well because they filled out my form and they were like sub 50K.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, we can really work together. And then on the call, he was like, no, we do like 3 million annually. I'm like, oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, and then the goal for those brands is usually to drive people to store to purchase. They don't want to drive to Shopify. If they show an increase in store velocity through a Costco or a Whole Foods, they're more likely to get rolled out nationwide, and that's the game they're playing.
There are also some like Alberts that they actually completely reversed. Like they had a lot of stores, they've kind of like had to close stores, and they were actually, I think they started fully D2C there, right? So
They did.
yeah. Anyway, that's
I think they got cheap money at the wrong time, expanded too quickly, and are trying to fix things. I think that's what happened with Allbirds.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next question. We're moving on to the next level as well with the questions. If we fast forward 5 years, do you think D2C marketing will still revolve around email, SMS, and direct mail? Or will new owned channels emerge that give the same level of control and profitability?
I think you hit the nail on the head with own channels. I mean, that was like that's the key phrase in there. It's like I definitely see it more as like the future is about own channels. Like you own the customer data, you could communicate to them one to one. For me, the big three in owned are email, SMS, and direct mail. I don't know that there's another one that I might be missing. Maybe you guys know, but I definitely think like operating through someone else's distribution or channel might give you some early wins, but it's strategically not favorable to you long term. If you're on Amazon, you're going to pay a tax. If you're on Meta, you're going to pay a tax, like to Meta. So, over the next 5 years, I don't really see anything else. I see TikTok shops coming along now, but that's not an own channel anymore. I mean, that's probably eventually the arbitrage will disappear. That channel will become fairly priced. And, TikTok will tax it. So I think it's those three. Yeah.
Yeah. I think to your question earlier, what Klaviyo is doing now is like they're calling SMS mobile messaging because it incorporates SMS and WhatsApp. So I think overall the owned channel is the phone number, right? Whether you send communication through WhatsApp or SMS,
Sure.
it's the phone number.
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. All right. We're going to do a quick section here, BFCM through Drew's eyes. And I have 2 questions. If you had to strip down BFCM to 3 actions that you think deliver 80% of the results, what would those actions be?
I think you need to dial in your offer, right? So all the economics behind your offer, think through how many you're going to sell, what are the economics on that? Because most brands just get burned on that. I would say think of alternatives to discounting, right? We've got some list on our site of like alternatives to discount, but gift with purchase, premium service, there's just a lot of like other things you can do that aren't going to give away margin. And then I got to say direct mail. It's probably number 3. Make sure you've got a direct mail reactivation campaign. It's a great time to go back. Like your cheapest source of new buyers are past buyers. They're past buyers who last bought from you 3-4 years ago. They unsubscribe from email, or they're not opening your emails anymore, because who opens emails from a brand you signed up for 3 years ago? And really the only, like, it's still cheaper to go get them by sending them a postcard than it is acquiring a new customer off of Meta. So that would be the third thing I do.
Awesome. Okay. And how would you measure? I came up with this one. I don't know how I would answer it myself, to be fair. How would you measure BFCM success if you banned yourself from using revenue as a metric?
Well, profits, right? Can I use profits as a metric?
Should have added profit in there. I should have added
Yes.
profit. If you ban yourself from using any monetary metric as a metric in the sense of like profit revenue.
Yeah. Any monetary metric. Wow. How is like because profitability, I've been pounding the table that it's about profitability, not revenue, for years. So I would like, can I say customer lifetime value? Does that count?
Yeah, no, that works. That works.
I want to mention lifetime value is also a measure of like money.
I know. That's why. But
I know. When I said that, I realized that if I take that away, there's nothing left.
I would actually no. You would.
It's fine.
Like second and third orders without discounts.
Oh yeah.
After
or time to purchase.
I think how about I would definitely look at how many, every brand has good and bad customers. Good customers come in once and buy a low dollar item. Good customers come in, they'll buy 3, 4, 5 times from you. They'll buy the most expensive stuff. So I definitely look at like how many of those good customers, was my offer effective in pulling in more of those good customers? So it's something you probably can't do in real time, but at the end of the quarter, you want to look back and say like, okay, of all those customers I brought in to purchase during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, like who's still active, who's purchased multiple times, like was my offer really good? Because if you go out with an offer that just attracts bad customers, it wasn't good, even though revenue might have spiked.
Yeah,
true. That's true. Cool. Awesome. All right. We have a quick fire session.
But I want to just add another question. We didn't prepare for this, but
go on.
You've been talking and saying about RFM, like it's been one of the things you've talked about in the past. You're still seeing it now. You already built a tool that kind of like had it in there. I still see that the brands that are really doing the things the right way are using it, but I do see a lot of like brands still struggle to understand the value of that. Why do you think that RFM is harder for brands to kind of like incorporate?
Probably math. I mean, usually it's like anybody who's over 40 knows what it is because they were brought up marketing and they know catalogs. And catalogs in the old days, like you had a big actual file. Every card was a customer and you had 3 metrics on it: recency, days since purchased, frequency, number of times purchased, and RNF predict M, which is the total spend. And you could do all sorts of targeting there. And I would say even today with AI, like the best predictive models of future lifetime value, any or profitability, are still like 80 or 90% RFM. So I think part of it's like the younger generation, the kids these days don't grow up talking RFM. They talk funnels, they talk traffic and conversions, but they're not talking about those database marketing metrics. That's probably the biggest reason.
And if there was one, like, of course, RFM, depending on how you define it, it will, depending on how you define RFM, there will be small or a lot of segments in there. What segments would you say are the most valuable to go after?
Well, it's more about like, I think, response rate. So like customer you last acquired yesterday versus a customer who last purchased 5 years ago. Like the one who bought yesterday is going to be more engaged going forward. Customer who bought 100 times from you is going to be more engaged than the customer who bought once. So knowing that, I think the more recency or the smaller recency, higher frequency segments are always going to be more engaged. But you've got to do the testing to figure out when it, like one thing we like to do at PostPilot is like a recency test. We'll just take all your customers going back 5 years. You can drop the same campaign and we break them into quartiles or something. And we can tell you where it's no longer profitable to market to your customers, right? So I think the most, I guess your question was like, where is it the most profitable to market to
so
them?
which of these segments are the most interesting to kind of like if you could only choose in
Yeah.
that.
The highest ROI for any brand based on database marketing is preventing an active customer from churning. Like when the average customer buys 10 times, like operating at that 10th purchase, like and keeping them coming around for an 11th or 12th, like that tends to be the highest ROI thing you can do. It's just what that is different for every brand.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
Nice.
Speed
Okay.
round?
All
We'll do
right.
a podcast on RFM
Speed.
alone. I think that's something we need to kind of like
Yeah.
share the young kids around.
Fun thing you should know about Omar, in every single episode we had, he always said this: we'll do a podcast on this topic alone, because he
Yeah.
always has something he cares so
And
much
now it's
about.
like
he wants
it's
to
like
do
a
another.
mile long, right? The list
Yeah.
of
Well, it
podcasts.
comes back to customer value optimization, understand your customers better, doing better research, and RFM is in that mix as well. So anyway, yeah.
So the rapid fire
Yes.
questions. We'll do 5 and 5. Omar, you can kick it off. We'll ask this or that. You can answer with your answer, or you can expand on it if you want. Up to you, Drew. So, Omar.
Yeah, all right. So let's kick it off. Direct mail or email? Which drives better incremental lift right now?
Better, but direct mail drives incrementality and you can measure it. You can't really measure it in email. They certainly make it hard. So I wouldn't know until Klaviyo rolls out incrementality testing.
Okay.
Profit or growth? What's harder to teach D2C founders to prioritize?
Profit. Easy. I think it's just like everybody's focused on growth. Profit's what ultimately matters. And your average marketer doesn't really think that way. They think in terms of ROAS, not ROI.
Yeah, I've seen some things changing. I like POAS, like profit on ad spend, but like it was a bit of a hype back in the year, like a year ago, and I don't hear a lot about it anymore. Surveys or phone calls? Where do you learn more truth?
Honestly, it's neither. I like going straight to a spreadsheet. I like looking at RFM. I like looking at customer behavior and just like past customer transactional behavior and seeing if I can find trends there.
All right.
And
Cool.
then maybe on top
Okay.
of that, I'll do surveys, I would say.
Cool. Thanks. LTV analysis or AOV optimization? Which moves the needle faster before BFCM?
AOV optimization, unfortunately. But yeah, upsells, you want to have all that stuff dialed, in your cart. Upsells, cross sells, try to see if you can maximize the take of that one order.
I think this one I already know what you're going to answer, but I'll see. VIP whales or mid-tier buyers? Who deserves more focus?
I think your whales. I think most businesses have 20% of your customers drive 80% of the profits. Figure out who they are. This is customer value optimization to me. Figure out who they are, where they come from, what they buy, and it's easier to double your business by focusing on them.
I think the one thing that I'm just going to quickly press pause, one thing that you said, 20% of your customers drive 80%. Most of the people will say revenue, but you're like what you're saying, profit. That's a
profit.
really, really important thing to kind of like zone in on, because
Oh,
that's
yeah.
what drives the business in the end.
Yep.
So, all right, cool.
Awesome.
Bogdan,
All right,
next
let's
slide
continue.
for you.
Retention or acquisition? Where do most brands waste budget?
Acquisition. I mean, just walk around New York City and look at the brands that are advertising on city bikes or, lighting meta ads on fire. It's just, there's very little discipline on the acquisition side.
That's true. Discount stacking or a single strong offer, which do you think can scale better?
I think a single strong offer. One thing to keep in mind is if you acquire customers off of discount, they wait to buy off discount again. So just be really careful with discounts.
True. This one is an interesting one. Attribution tools or just gut feel? Which do you really trust most?
Gut feel.
Jeez.
But maybe that's just because. Okay. Well, maybe just because I've been doing it for 25 years. Like we can.
I was gonna say, yeah. For you, the gut feel is the best attribution tool.
I've yet to see a brand that has like a solid attribution model that is like everybody believes in. It's always like, oh, it missed 30% of this or more, it's just off. Like nobody really. At the end of the day, you got to make the call,
This one's quite sort of similar. Founder instinct or analyst report, which should decide next month's budget or spend?
I think founder instinct.
Okay.
He has the right
instinct. Finally, if he has the right, that's true. Lifetime value or customer love, which one keeps brands alive longer?
Lifetime value. I mean, lifetime value.
That was it, Drew.
I think it's just inherent in like a lot of lifetime value that the customers love the product. I know a lot of brands that have gone bankrupt and the customers love them. You sell everything at half off, you're going to generate a lot of customer love, but you're going to go bankrupt.
Yeah.
Very true. Okay, Drew, that was it from us. Honestly, thank you. It was a pleasure having you on. I know Omar's been looking forward to this for a long time. And man, every single time, all of our 9 episodes that we've done, it's like, we should get Drew Sanocki on. We should get Drew Sanocki on. I was like, yes, let's get it done.
Yeah.
I was psyched to meet him.
So,
I was psyched to meet you in Boston. It was great. I felt like it was a long time coming. And and Bogdan, you and I met there too. It was great to see you. And I love the podcast. So thanks for the opportunity.
Amazing.
Awesome. Cool.
And
all right.
maybe for the next podcast, we're still looking for a couple of speakers as well. And I know that when you did your CXL course, you had someone as well joining you, teaching about Facebook and
Ezra.
Yeah. So
you want him?
Yeah.
Ezra is our next hit list.
All right.
We'll try and make
that
work.
We also, I don't know if you want to put this in the show notes, but we have this big. I'm guessing your listeners are mostly Klaviyo, right?
Yeah. Well, the name says a lot of it.
Yeah, they don't even sponsor us yet.
We have like a playbook on how to use Klaviyo and PostPilot that you could put in the show notes. I just put it there.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, we'll put that in the description of the episode. We put this on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. But yeah, awesome. Let's before we wrap up, Drew. Obviously, thinking that our audience is mostly CRM marketers, Klaviyo marketers. Anything that you want to say to them? Probably they're going to listen to this about 2-3 weeks before BFCM.
Yeah, I would say we still have time to run some quick direct mail campaigns. So reach out to PostPilot. Reach out to me. I'm Drew at postpilot.com. Love to answer any questions and help you guys get started.
Amazing.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Drew. Thank you again. Thanks. This was Klaviyo Geeks, episode 10. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know, 10 episodes. I think we're going to probably, cut it at 12 and then do a season 2 or something. I always wanted to have like a multiple season podcast. But thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. Always a pleasure. And we will see you on the next one.